Hey guys, it's me Shadragan, and today's video we will talking about Wuthering Waves story in general. This is mostly story review because I see a lot of people say Wuthering Waves story is bad. So is it actually really bad? Of course, in the end, this is only my perspective and my opinion, so you can take it or leave it. Mostly, I will not even use script this one. I will just go with the natural flow. And of course, I will try to not give you so much spoilers. So let's get started. So long story short, if you don't want to hear everything, if you ask me is Wuthering Waves story is bad, I can say it is yes-and. Because it's literally yes-and I have to explain why. So let's start first with the rover. Rover is basically pretty much quite similar like typical MC where you just hear without any memory, so you just boneless, so finally you get introduced to people, so kind of, you know, like finally feels like you live again because you don't have any memory, so try to regain everything that you know. And this is where the story is starting. So starting from Act 1 to Act 3, nothing much actually happened. It's just pretty much Rover tried to understand how to get more information, try to contact certain person to know more about their past memories. But the problem that in here for me is that Act 1 and Act 3 is too much dragging. And you already heard some people say it's slow start, it's pretty much kind of boring, something like that. And they say it's lore dumping, and yeah, pretty much like it's negative feedbacks. And I can quite understand and somehow agree, because people want to start this game expect like this is an action RPG game. They at least expect something like have action. In fact, there's no much happening besides Crownless that happened in the Act 1, and after that Act 2, Act 3, yeah, there is some action, but it just mostly 70% is just like explaining stuff, lore dumping. And if you don't like story-driven heavy narrative, then you pretty much don't really enjoy it, because they literally tell you a lot of heavy lore stuff that you need to use your brain. At this case, like you want to play game, it doesn't feel you want to play game. It feels like you go to school and forced to learn the subject itself, which is, it's not fun, it's not entertaining, which is I kind of agree. But for me, at least it's not really a major problem, because lore dumping, I'm fine, because I find Wuthering Wave lore is pretty interesting. But what the most problem for me from Act 1 to Act 3 is that they ask us to investigate 3 items, and these 3 items that they actually can just make it like less than 30 minutes, but they make it like over 1 hour. And some of them even like they should not put in the main story. Let's say like the mangosteen. Mangosteen is not part of the native of fruit on this like Xianzhou, something like that. So this is pretty much imported something. Yeah, that's a nice lore to you to know, but I don't think it's good for you to put in the main story. It's good for additional stuff to know, but no in the main story. Or let's say the candy is like used to be vaccine, something like, oh my god, they don't need to put that much. But instead they just force us to listen all of this, which is, I say like, even like you skip this part, it's actually fine. That's why I don't really understand why they kind of force us and make it such a drag in this part, that we can actually just do it later, maybe just reading for additional knowledge, something like that. But instead they just make it in the main story, and where this is part I feel it's too much dragging. But beside of that, there's a couple of interesting moments. The Scar stories that they expect about the black ship is that it's actually nice. It's just probably you already feel tired with the old lore dumping, yapping, you don't care anymore, which is I agree and I can understand. But honestly, if you pay attention, because I do reroll for my free-to-play account, so I have to go through 9 times. And this Scar story is pretty interesting about the village that I explained. It's just like, again, it's just mostly the phasing issue, too much dragging, it's slow pace. So it just feel like there's a couple of interesting parts become not interesting anymore, because we already lose like engagement in here. I think what Wuthering Wave lack of their starting point of their story is that epicness and the banger itself, because it doesn't feel engaging. I think they should take a good example like Final Fantasy 16. They did a good job to attract people to interest into their story. Because in Final Fantasy 16, they give you free demo, right? So literally they give a very good job marketing in here. They just give a banger opening of the story. It's literally not so much lore dumping, it's just enough. But everything that happened feels so much like, what the hell? And then this is one of the few games that I don't mind to get spoiled. And I don't mind if I haven't played and I get spoiled, because I'm just so curious about the story. And this is what actually Wuthering Waves have to do. Just make it, the intro itself, the opening itself just so banger, and people become like want to know about the story and finally curious, so they don't mind later to know about the world building. Even you lore dump afterwards, people will pretty much will accept just because it's already banger. So yeah, I think they lack of that. It's lack of engagement of the starting point. My speculation in here why the story not so great at the starting point, it's probably because they write the whole story in just 6 months, because you know, right, they say they rewrite the whole story in just 6 months, and I think this is the effect, so it turned out not really that great. And this is part where I feel like I say Wuthering Waves story is not really great, and if I agree if people say the story is bad. But that was Act 1 until Act 3. Moving to the Act 4, this is start to become more interesting, where I feel like this is the turning point where Wuthering Waves story finally at least become better. Of course, at Act 4 still another lore dumping, but the lore dumping is finally important, and this is where actually all the essential part. So that's why if I want to give you advice, just move straight to the Act 4 where you meet Jinxie at the Grand Library, and that's actually all the lore dump that important that you usually have to care about. And this is where it already become interesting. Although this is lore dumping, but it's just all essential part. Doesn't feels like all the useless part. All doesn't feels like this is just a side information. So this is actually where they're starting to become interesting. And Act 4 is pretty much simple, but a lot of information, and that's actually what they should have to do from Act 1 until Act 3. They don't need to drag, just make like this. It becomes more like enjoyable for me to follow. And move to the Act 5, it's even better, because in here where I feel like finally Wuthering Waves story become more, I can say, natural, because everything happen in here. It has more dynamic, there's more interaction, there's some funny part like Alto Churcia is so funny. Angkor also add more like cuteness in here, and also they have some encounter that also pretty much like mysterious the girls, right? I don't want to reveal more. And then after that too, like they have like another stuff that they do the investigation like usual, but this time it's just very short. And imagine if they can do just as short like this, it's basically actually the story become good. And other than that, they have also another lore dumping after we go to a certain place, and then yeah, we'll learn more stuff. And that's where I find like this is actually what the story that they should do from the start. It has everything in here, and Act 5 feels more lively and more enjoyable for me. And then for the end of the 1.0 story, which is the Act 6, this is pretty much all the war starting, so this is involve more action. And I can say everything in here pretty much relatively good. I can say the war until the end is pretty much, I say, have some good moment and epic stuff that I can say. The only thing that I wish they can done better in here is that the cutscene they put more and the quality to give us more immersion and feeling, like give pump us more our emotion. But of course I cannot demand this company Kuro is not really that we can say have super big financial like you know the other gacha company. So yeah, I can understand that like they still kind of limited, but imagine in the future they have more budget and they make it more immersive in terms of their cutscenes. So I believe this war even feel better. So I'm looking forward to like another war like this that they will make it even more, we can say, tense. But in the end, I can say I will highlight this couple cool moments that I say they never done in any gacha history before, where they took the approach where it's not just mostly visual novel like they did in the previous act, or even other gacha games that whenever they have their main story, most of the case they only do like mostly it's just visual novel like 70 to 80%. The rest, yeah, they have some killing enemy, probably like do a little bit domain, and the end probably mostly that they just focus on the boss, and that's pretty much it. But most of the case is just visual novel. But in this axis they did a little bit different, quite similar with another like action RPG in the single player game, like let's say like Tales series, or even like Final Fantasy VII Remake, or even Scarlet Nexus if you ever play. Yeah, it just remind me like the single player game, where this is makes us more participated and more interactive in terms of the stories itself, feeling we are more involved, not just like sitting down pressing spacebar or click, just like sitting down just watching movie. Instead, like we play, after that it has story, we play. Instead, we play, we do the battles, and then we progress, it has story. Same again, we progress again, there's action combat packed in there, and after that there's story, keep alternate until the end of the boss, which is, I feel it's a nice different touch that I say pretty good, give like single player experience that I feel this is another unique touch from Kuro that they should keep it, I think, in the future. And other things that I want to add up in here, our MC Rover, it feels like finally in a gacha game there's a proper MC where that feels like we actually did something significant that involving to the story. Instead we just like become helper. Because if you know there's other gacha game, right? The story is good, but our MC feels so useless in the end sometimes because we in the end just helping them. And in the end most of the story is just basically solved by the other people, not us. We just helping. But in here it feels like we have our shonen moment where a little bit minor spoiler where basically we are already alone, Jian already take down, so cannot even get up. And finally we have our own moment, and that's where we can get of course the Dark Grover new power, right? And that's the cool moment. Finally we have something significant. Yeah, it's a little bit shonen like Naruto stuff, but yeah, at least it feels like we did something important in here by ourselves. So it doesn't feel like we feel useless or just a helper, where I feel like I really appreciate they make us actually in here MC feels they do actually something significant. So yeah, that's pretty much what I want to talk about the story about Wuthering Wave. Overall, I'll already say the only bad part in Wuthering Wave is Act 1 until Act 3. The rest of them, if you can think differently, then Act 4 until Act 6 is actually pretty much relatively decent to good, depends on your standard. For me, it's decent, just because my overall experience kinda ruined from Act 1 until Act 3. That's why I can say, if you want to start the story, just skip directly to Act 4, and then I think your experience will be getting better, because maybe some of us right now that already feels like Wuthering Wave story not really great, probably because you already feel torture from Act 1 until Act 3, so you cannot really enjoy for the rest like Act 4 to Act 6, which is I can understand. So in the end, if you ask my score for Act 1 until Act 3, the one that I don't like, I give it 4. But Act 4 and Act 6, I will give 7. But in the end, if you count as overall, I give 6. It's just like pretty much decent as a whole experience. So in the end, if you still ask me, is it Wuthering Wave story is bad? Nah, for me it's not really bad actually. It's only first few hours, first few acts that actually relatively I agree is bad. But the rest I can say it's decent to good. So no, I don't think it's as bad as people talk. It's just mostly people already very burning out or feel so torture from the first few acts, and they cannot really enjoy the rest though. So yeah, I'm looking forward actually for Wuthering Wave story. It looks promising. I just hope of course they make it more epic like how they make in PGR, because PGR also one of the game where the starting story is very torturing, not great. But right now it's already epic. It's so good. So I have also pretty much faith in them that they can do the same history. So yeah, that's everything I want to talk. I appreciate if you still listen until this part of video, because I know this video I don't think it will make good. And I rarely make a dedicated video just about the story, but I feels like it's quite interesting to talk because people say it's bad and I kind of want to share my opinion. So yeah, in the end, if you like this type of video, feel free to share, subscribe button and like, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.